In Midsummer on the Marsh, a killer is targeting members of a birdwatching society. Can Barnaby and Jones catch the killer before they fly the coop? Cue for laughter.
The
We're talking a very sexy episode,
history of birding.
and a whole lot of dancing on this episode of.
Welcome to Midsummer.
Hello, and welcome to Midsummer, the podcast where we dissect all the mysteries, the murders, and the many weird things about the long running hit TV show Midsummer Murders. I'm your host, Eric Buscher, and with me, as always, is my co host, Eileen Becker. Hey, Eileen.
Hey, Eric. Today we're talking about A Rare Bird, the 8th episode of the 14th series. It originally aired January 11th, 2012. It was directed by Nick Laughlin and written by Steve Trafford. Maestro, if you please.
Spoiler warning, we will be discussing the events of this episode, including the identity of the murderer. So if you haven't watched yet and don't want to know who done it, pause this and go watch it. We will still be here when you get back.
Contusion to the rear of the skull. Asphyxiation by drowning, most likely cause of death.
We can eliminate accident then.
I wouldn't be too hasty. He could have stumbled into the net, fallen, hit his head, rolled into the lake.
Looks like blood on the end of this.
It's a bramble beezer, isn't it? Could be blackberry juice.
You think of everything.
I trust nothing and no one till tested and proven.
Patrick Morgan, a retired finance bro in his early 50s, walks the grounds of his estate in Midsummer on the Marsh, releasing a finch caught on a fence. He returns home, where his wife Nina tells him she's pregnant, to which Patrick responds, "Who's the father?" He threatens to kill her, while someone watches it all with a high-powered camera and audio recording equipment. Later, Dave Foxley, Midsummer's version of a good old boy, drives his pickup truck to Patrick's home to deliver firewood. Patrick witnesses him flirting with Nina and goes to Dave's boss, local farmer George Napier, and tells him that wood order is canceled. George is planning to drain the local wetlands, which Patrick threatens to stop because it's home to a number of rare birds and Patrick is an avid bird watcher. When he leaves, George implies Patrick is going to get hurt. Nina is a former prima ballerina who now teaches dance classes. One of her students is Amy Whitley, whose father Tim is also a bird nut. He asks Nina to drive Amy home because he needs to head to the local lake to look for the blue-crested hoopoe, an incredibly rare bird that has been reported sighted in the area. Tim grabs class pianist Michael Hipsman, who is also into birds. Oh no. Oh no. This is a birdwatcher town. Uh-oh.
It is a birdwatcher town.
A group of them, including Patrick, Tim, Michael, Dr. Ian Markham, and Olivia Carter, swarmed through the area, stumbling across a lost John and Sarah Barnaby out for a hike. Later at the local pub, the Birdwatcher Association meets, led by Patrick. No one has been able to see this blue-crested hoopoe other than the very argumentative member, Ralph Ford, who insists this puts him in the lead of their annual bird spotting competition. The hoopoe is an endangered species not even native to England, so the odds of him seeing it are incredibly low. And Patrick therefore says there's no proof, and Ralph should not get the credit, which causes Ralph to threaten Patrick. That night, the birdwatchers are back out in the lake looking for that hoopoe. Patrick gets a sighting message that lures him to an area of the woods where someone throws a net on him, beats him with a bramble beater, that means big stick, then drops him into the lake. That morning, Barnaby and Jones arrive on the scene. Coroner Kate Wilding tells them that despite all the contusions on his skull, Patrick died from drowning. They find the stick, and they find his phone with the alert, so they have some clues to work with. They go to talk to Nina, who says she didn't see Patrick that night, but that was not uncommon when you love a bird, man. They had been married for 10 years after she left the Kirov Ballet, and she'd been trying for a child for a long, long time. While she is in tears with them, later on they spy her acting not so sad. The birding alert Patrick received is traced to Ralph's phone, but he claims it is missing and says it must have been stolen at the pub the night of the meeting. They next go to interview Tim. He's a single parent who does computer and AV repairs and loves recording bird mating calls. He was at the lake at the time of the murder and recorded the whole thing. They hear the church bells on the recording, and that indicates Patrick was killed at the stroke of midnight. Barnaby interviews Hipsman, who does not have many nice things to say about Patrick, but Olivia overhears him denigrating the man she silently loved and does not like it. She tells Barnaby that Patrick loved birds. He was a real man, not like these wimps. Hipsman claims he was home the night of the murder, playing his oboe well past midnight. Jones interviews Napier, who tells him about the fight over the wetlands and that everyone is just better off without Patrick. Kate confirms that Patrick was murdered. Catch up, Kate. But gives a new piece of information. Patrick had a vasectomy 15 years ago, so there's no way Nina's child is his. They go talk to her, and she admits her relationship with Patrick was not good. She claims the baby is the product of a drunken one night stand in London, but Patrick didn't believe her, and neither do the police. They visit Markham, Nina's doctor, who says he was treating her for depression. When Barnaby hints that maybe Markham is the baby daddy, he says their relationship was entirely professional. However, later on that day, Markham visits Nina, and it sure seems they are much more as he comforts her, and the silent watcher takes photos of it all. Tourist info. Do you want to get back to nature? Midsummer in the Marsh is the place to get your bird watching on, as our wetlands are the home of many rare birds. Or you can come down to the local pub and watch a different kind of bird with some of our more colorful locals. Come enjoy our talented local ballet dancers. They know almost all of the moves.
Michael Hipsman's bookshop was portrayed by the Cottage Bookshop in Penn, Buckinghamshire. It was also used as Jack Wilson's bookshop in Lower Warden in A Tale of Two Hamlets. It's been used in the British children's TV show Blue Peter, and it's believed that it was the inspiration for Terry Pratchett's library in his Discworld novels. Sadly, it closed in 2018 after 60 years of business. According to the Bucks Free Press, bookshop numbers have had between 2011 and 2018, while the Bookseller, the business magazine of the book industry in the UK since 1858, reports that 2016 was the low mark for the number of independent bookstores in the UK, with 867. In 2024, there were 1,063. This is matching a trend also seen in the US, where online retailers and e-readers impacted sales and forced many stores to close. But the number of indie bookstores has doubled in the past 8 years, according to Book Riot, which is something that Eric and I both love.
So we have a strange kill, more in the sense that Patrick is covered in a net, beaten and drowned. I think it's just more strange at the fact that at one point, as we were watching him being killed, the killer lines up his shot and like he's swinging a golf club and nails Patrick in the head like it's a golf ball.
That was weird.
It was weird. Never touched on. It's not like when we find out who the killer is. He's a golf nut.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I thought it was really weird that Barnaby just didn't recognize the body of the guy who was in his face one day prior.
Maybe he's face blind.
Oh, it's a bird. Oh, I remember running into those bird guys.
Yeah.
Kind of an interesting moment at the top where Nina gets her pregnancy test and it just says pregnant.
Yeah. I guess it was the plus sign was too ambiguous for the UK market.
I was waiting for it to just play music.
Having
Da, 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 you're a parent. Da, 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 da.
my baby.
Is that the tune you think Foxley's singing as he drives? Did you notice that as he's driving through, just as he's driving through town, he's like ba da 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 ba ba ba. I was like, what? For a second there, I do think it was the theme to the Dukes of Hazzard.
Just a good old boy.
And of course, what would a Midsummer episode be without someone being threatened in the very beginning?
Yep.
I mean, it's practically the Midsummer hello.
Yep.
As I mentioned in the recap, this is a episode where there's another Midsummer village where
Mhm.
everyone just seems to be into the same thing, and that thing is bird watching.
Yep.
What did you think of that meeting of the bird watchers?
I don't think they're normally. I've not been part of a birding group, but I have been on some bird walks and stuff, and they tend not to be quite that violent and contentious.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, when Patrick and Ralph both arrive at the same time, they
Yeah.
literally snarl at each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm using the word literally correctly. Arr, I'm like, eh, use your words. You don't have to have a problem with that in the meeting, where Ralph. I get that Patrick's kind of a jerk,
Mm-hmm.
but oh my god, Ralph is just kind of insanely obnoxious.
Yeah, I can see that both Ralph and Patrick are jerks, but a lot of people who get involved with stuff and get very emotional and about it tend to be
The term
very
you're looking for is
or is
obsessed.
obsessed, yeah, and they get jerky about it, yeah, they do, yeah.
Ralph is throwing a fit over the hoopoo. This will be the most times the word hoopoo will ever be uttered in a TV show,
Mhm.
outside of anything with David Attenborough. It's a real bird. It is native to the Afghanistan.
There are 3 types of hoopoes.
Mhm.
And it looks like what they did was they took a Eurasian hoopoo, tuck cut off the top black part of the feather crest, and dyed them blue when they finally showed the bird. So that is a Eurasian hoopoo, and it doesn't ever go to the UK or the British Isles.
Which makes the whole plot point around it very straight. Like that's the thing is Ralph has to admit that it sounds
Mhm.
made up.
Yeah.
Is like I saw this thing and it's like
It's not out of the realm of possibility because they do breed in parts of France that are so that it's not that far away, but, they'd have to fly across the English Channel and
yeah,
yeah, so it would be unusual,
yeah,
and apparently, they do find it, it's dead when they, actually see it because somebody killed it,
yeah.
but,
Why were they in the pub? They could have just had this meeting at Patrick's house, right?
Yeah, he's got a nice big house.
Nice big house. He likes lording stuff over people. I was just like, why are they doing this in the pub?
Yeah,
Other than we can get that great scene of Markham bonking his head.
yeah. The doctor's house is pretty big too. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
We also had a great scene in the bird hide.
Oh, I love the bird hide scene. It's and actually a lot of humor in this episode, but that one just had a very kind of silly Monty Python esque feel to it, and I loved it.
Oh yeah, it was there just to give the sense that Ralph could be the mysterious watcher because we see him
Hmm.
with the big camera.
Yeah,
He's so angry.
yeah,
Like like honestly, if he was angry like if he was always that angry at these meetings, I would have asked him to leave a long time ago. I was like,
yeah,
"No." This or
yeah,
I would have quit because I was like, "He's an ass.
yeah,
I don't want to be around him." There is another portion there's another big thing in this episode where it's a lot of Swan Lake
yeah.
is factors into the story in a very big way. Swan Lake is of course, Tchaikovsky's probably most famous ballet. It is the story of Odette, who is cursed to be a swan by an evil sorcerer, who then falls in love with a prince. That is about as basic as we can make the plot
Yeah,
of Swan Lake without this becoming a whole podcast episode about Swan
about
Lake.
Swan Lake. Yeah.
Nina is a ballerina. We see her performing the ballet. We see her performing. Hypothetically, it's part of Swan Lake.
Hmm.
Although this also does feel heavily influenced by the film The Black Swan,
Hmm.
which came out in 2010, which was 2 years prior to this episode. So
Yeah,
it's definitely in the conscious when they're making this.
yeah. And the Black Swan, as they say, is Odile, who is the sorcerer creates Odile to seduce the prince, and as disguise herself as Odette and seduce the prince. And then Odette sees it, and
I've only ever seen the Matthew Bourne version, which is the very famous all male
mm,
production of Swan Lake, and it is extraordinary.
hmm,
In this, Nina is both in her flashback or
hmm,
her memories or her imagination. They're never quite clear what it is that she is
yeah,
both the white swan and the black swan,
hmm,
representing both good and evil.
hmm,
And that sequence was an incredible use of camera and mirrors for that dance sequence.
yeah. Again, this was the director of photography was Colin Munn, who's done some great stuff. He does really beautiful nature filming as well. The scenes in the woods were really lovely. Some absolutely gorgeous sunrise sunset scenes as well.
It's stylish in a way that you never really see in Midsummer. Like,
Yeah.
There's a lot. It's use of mirrors and it's very stylish. I wanted to check. Nick Laughlin also did Death and the Divas,
Mm-hmm.
which had a lot of those kind of funky flashbacks to '60s horror film.
Yeah,
He did Send in the Clowns that had that very weird sort of cinematic opening.
yeah,
So he does tend to be the Midsummer guy when you want to do something a little more different, a little more cinematic.
yeah,
He seems to be the guy.
yeah. And I love that they did it for the scene with the students doing the ballet, because usually that's often portrayed as a scene where people are messing up, the girls are, like terrible. But it was played very seriously. And having had done ballet when I was younger, I loved that they played it as these girls have become swans. And yeah, especially the
Amy,
Amy, especially Amy is this.
Eileen, were you an Amy?
No, I wasn't quite an Amy. I was not the best, but I was not the worst.
Okay. Um, I really enjoyed the little bit of sound design that it came with the whoosh of the net.
Hmm.
Like where the first time you hear it, it was like, "What is that?" Then the second time you hear it, you're like, "Oh no!"
Yeah,
Well done.
yeah.
Um, so to go deeper into the history of bird watching, Eileen, you did you did the history of bird watching.
I did. Humans have long looked to the skies in awe, and probably some envy, as birds soared overhead. It's no wonder that many ancient cultures regarded birds as sacred, if sometimes very tasty. The Egyptians carefully watched birds, which were plentiful in the area, and the Nile marked a major route for the migratory birds, giving them even more to see. Images of birds are pervasive in ancient Egyptian art, often with great ornithological detail about avian behavior. Among the birds associated with their gods were the falcon, the goose, the heron, the vulture, the ostrich, and, of course, the ibis. Gods were often depicted with bird heads. In ancient Greek mythology, the eagle was sacred to Zeus, while the peacock was associated with his wife Hera. The swan is sacred to both Apollo and Aphrodite, while Athena was often depicted with an owl, mechanical or not. Native American folklores also contain much bird imagery, especially ravens and eagles. Tales of rainbirds and thunderbirds link the sky to the land. In East Asia, the crane represents luck and longevity, while the phoenix is an auspicious sign of peace and prosperity. Christianity adopted the dove as the symbol of the Holy Spirit. Even today, we use birds in a very symbolic way, and not just in art and religion. Sports teams like the Eagles, Ravens, Blue Jays, Cardinals, Falcons, Ducks, and even Penguins can be spotted on playing fields, rinks, and courts every weekend. Countries adopted birds as national symbols, and eagles, condors, emus, egrets, storks, doves, cranes, swans, skylarks, roosters, kiwis, and parrots are among the many national birds. Birds were closely studied as they were often used as a source of food, as well as an augury. Migratory birds could signal the change in seasons. Aristotle listed 170 bird species in his History of Animals, noting migratory patterns, molting, nesting, and lifespans. Several books on birds were published over the following centuries, and hunting and collecting birds was a favorite pastime of the upper classes, who had land and leisure to indulge in the hobby. We'll discuss falconry more in Birds of a Feather, but birds were generally killed in order to study them. In the 17th century, Francis Willoughby and John Ray created the first major system of bird classification based on function and structure. Other works soon appeared on the continent and eventually the Americas. John James Audubon published The Birds of America, which contained 435 engravings of birds depicted in their natural habitats, in the early 19th century. The birds were killed so that they could be painted. Taxidermy techniques for birds had developed in the mid 18th century. While the houses of the wealthy often contained stuffed birds and eggs, some naturalists used their observation of birds to further scientific inquiry. The most famous of these birds are probably the Darwin finches from the Galapagos archipelago. Charles Darwin brought four very distinct and varied birds from the islands and was surprised when ornithologist John Gould told him that they were closely related. These helped further his theory that species are not immutable, which was instrumental in his theory of evolution. Just imagine how shocked he'd be by the idea that birds are descended from dinosaurs. Killing birds to study or collect them was common until one day in June of 1898, British ornithologist Edmund Selous had an epiphany while watching a couple of nesting nightjars. He realized that killing them would be, as he wrote, monstrous and horrible. Advances in what were then opera glasses but came to become binoculars pushed along the notion that observing live birds in their habitats was much better than killing and dissecting them. Ornithologist Max Nicholson believed that bird watching should be purposeful and useful and contribute to scientific knowledge. He especially was instrumental in starting the practice of monitoring bird populations. As bird watching grew as a hobby in the 20th century, James Fisher published his book Watching Birds in 1940, and it eventually sold over 1 million copies. Birdwatching was a popular hobby during World War II, as it was something soldiers could do during lulls in battles, and prisoners of war also sought solace in birdwatching. After World War II, birdwatching exploded as a hobby. No longer just the pastime of the wealthy, birders came from all walks of life. Some are casual birders who may keep informal lists of the birds they've seen in their backyards or in local parks, while others are heavily into keeping life lists and traveling on birding expeditions. Field manuals were published, appealing to the working and middle classes, while binoculars improved and could often be found for a reasonable cost. Women have become avid birders. Worldwide, birding is a hobby that millions of people enjoy. People can enjoy the hobby in their city environment, suburban backyard, or travel to nearby natural habitats. It's hard to gauge how many are involved in the hobby, but according to Smithsonian Magazine, the membership of the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds is larger than all UK political parties combined. This popularity has had some downsides as bird populations have declined due to habitat loss and overexploitation. But technology is making it easier to track birds and their migration patterns, and our knowledge of the bird world is expanding. There may be more and more people observing fewer and fewer birds, but there's hope that this interest in the preservation of birds and their habitats will allow bird populations to rebound.
So you said you've gone bird watching?
I have, yeah. I'm kind of casual with it. I've been out on a few expeditions with, kind of some serious groups. I'm hoping I can do better because my main problem has been I have terrible eyesight, which is not a good thing for when you're trying to bird watch. Though when I did go to the Galapagos Islands, I did see Galapagos penguins, and that was probably the most amazing bird I've ever seen. They're so cute. I love them.
You want to take us through the cast highlights?
Sure. James Dreyfus was easy to get along with Ralph Ford. Dreyfus is an Olivier Award winner for his supporting work in the musical Lady in the Dark. He appeared in The Thin Blue Line, Gimme Gimme Gimme, and Mount Pleasant. He also appeared in Notting Hill as Hugh Grant's bookstore employee. He most recently was in House of the Dragon. He's one of those actors you'll recognize in a lot of TV shows. Alan Cordiner played the maestro Michael Hipsman. Cordiner made his on-screen debut in the film Yentl. He also played Sullivan to Jim Broadbent's Gilbert and Mike Leigh's Topsy Turvy, which I highly recommend. He's been in Da Vinci's Demons and Tar. He's also read the audiobooks for Magpie Murders and Moonflower Murders, written by Anthony Horowitz, the original writer of Midsomer Murders. Paul Nichols was shadowboxing horn dog Dave Foxley. He first appeared on TV at the age of 10 in the show Children's Ward. He's been in Law & Order UK, Bridget Jones' The Edge of Reason, and Ackley Bridge. In 2017, he fell from a waterfall in Thailand while on holiday. His phone broke in the fall, so he was stranded at the bottom for 3 days. He was rescued and was hospitalized with broken legs, and his knee was destroyed. A year later, he had a stroke that caused him to suffer depression. He began self-medicating and became addicted to dihydrocodone and cocaine. Luckily, he got himself sober in 2020, just in time for COVID. Nicholas Spulton was Birds on the Brain Dr. Ian Markham. He's been in Topsy Turvy as well, Game of Thrones, Shakespeare in Love, and Doctor Who. He is best known for voicing Hawk in the Dragon Age video game series. His height is listed at 6'3", which means he probably hit his head in that pub a lot.
I imagine there's a world where that's like he did it once on accident and they're like, "Oh, that's good. Let's put it in."
Like the stormtrooper hits his head in Star Wars. Paul Bigley played Down for Bird Calls Tim Whitley. He's a Lambda grad who appeared in Just a Gigolo, The Glam Metal Detectives, Shakespeare in Love, Ted Lasso, Silo, and Call the Midwife. Amanda Lawrence played Unlucky in Love Olivia Carter. She's appeared in The Enfield Haunting, White House Farm, Mr. Turner, and Suffragette. She played Rebel Leader Commander Dacey in 2 Star Wars films, The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. Ella Al-Khalil Coyle was child dancer Amy Whitley. This is her only on-screen role at this point, but it looks like she is doing a lot of student acting and is involved with the Girls Don't Theater Company, who had a show at the Fringe last year. Hope to see her again in the future.
We had a couple of return visitors. Alexander Hansen played snipped birder Patrick Morgan. He also appears in For Death Prepare. He was born in Norway and moved to England when his mom remarried to a man from Nottingham. He originally planned to work in hotels, but decided to follow his passion for drama. He's done a lot of West End theater, and on screen he was in Casualty, Beach is Back, The Fugitives, Killing Eve, and The Chelsea Detective. His wife is Midsummer return visitor Samantha Bond, who we have not met yet.
Which is amazing since she's been in so many episodes.
Yep. Tony Haygarth played Grumpy George Napier. He's also in Destroying Angel and King's Crystal. He's appeared in I, Claudius, Dracula, A Month of the Country, Chicken Run, and Nutrex. In his off hours, he was a scholar of Shakespeare's Dark Lady, who is a mysterious figure that often appeared in Shakespeare's sonnets. Haygarth passed away in 2017. We had a few uncredited actors and return visitors this week who helped make sure parents were at that dance recital. Shout out to Julie Volono, Carol Cummings, David Galt, and Nick Thomas Webster for clapping for those kids. And as usual, our beloved mayor of Midsummer, Chris Wilson, was on hand as a police officer. Our village star this week goes to Genevieve O'Reilly, who played our prima ballerina Nina Morgan. Despite the Russian accent, she was born in Ireland and raised in Australia. She studied at the National Institute of Dramatic Art in Sydney, graduating in 2000. The following year, she had her first on screen appearance on the show Beastmaster. She's done a number of plays both in Australia and in London, and turns out I actually saw her in the Broadway production of Jez Butterworth's The Ferryman. She's had a steady career on screen, appearing in MI5 episodes Glitch, The Legend of Tarzan, The Snowman, and Tin Star. In 2005, she was cast in the role of rebel leader Mon Mothma in Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith, and has continued to play the role in Rogue One, Star Wars Rebels, Andor, and Ahsoka. The original Mon Mothma was played by Carolyn Blakeson, a Midsummer return visitor who was a village star in our episode on The Village That Rose from the Dead. So it turns out playing Mon Mothma is clearly the fastest way to being our village star, which is the most coveted award in all of Midsummer. And yes, she did train as a ballet dancer when she was younger.
She was very believable to me as a ballet dancer. So I was not surprised to learn that she had ballet in her past.
She has the star role this week because she had the most physical work of anybody in this cast.
Yeah.
With those incredible dance sequences that were shot.
Mm-hmm.
I also thought she just did a really good job of playing someone who was very conflicted. The moment that I was like, I thought she was a really good actor was when at the very beginning when she realized that she's kind of surrounded
Mm-hmm.
in just as they're questioning her,
Yeah.
and she stiffens up a little bit, and I was like, yeah, a Russian immigrant
Yeah.
used to secret police tactics would probably do that.
Yeah.
It's a small little character choice that just sold me on her character.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought she did a fantastic job. She portrayed a very complicated form of grief well.
Yep. All right, we're going to take a quick break here, and we'll be back with the second half of A Rare Breed. And we're back. Let's talk about the second half of A Rare Breed.
So, tell me more about Nina the ballerina. She's Russian, you said?
Yes, very chic. Dancer's thighs, bottom like an apple.
Oh, you noticed.
It's my job to take down her particulars.
Barnaby receives the photos of Nina and Markham from an unknown sender. They show the doctor the photos, but he says he was just comforting her, giving her a sedative, and then denies any impropriety. He says he hated Patrick but didn't kill him or father Nina's baby. Meanwhile, Olivia has seen the photos and she gossips to Tim and Hipsman about the doctor and Nina. At the pub, Foxley sees a photo of the hoopoo and tells Ralph he knows the truth and asks for money. That night, the doctor goes to the woods on an emergency call and finds himself netted and shot. The doctor was killed at the stroke of midnight, and Hipsman found him on a morning walk. Nina finally admits that yes, the doctor was the father, but she didn't find out about Patrick's vasectomy until after she was pregnant, which led to a massive fight. Patrick had been obsessed with Nina when she was a ballerina, but he seemed to want her less and less once actually married to her. Foxley shows up with a shotgun in his truck, and Barnaby fires it to take the shells, which match to ones that were found at the scene, so they bring Foxley in. He claims his shells are all over the woods because he frequently hunts there. In fact, he admits to shooting a hoopoo by accident and then bringing it to Ralph to stuff since he is a taxidermist. The detectives find a stuffed hoopoo at Ralph's, who was cheating at this bird watching competition after all. But he denies killing anyone and says he wouldn't because he's a vegetarian. Tim has more audio for the detectives to hear, and they listen to the shots, but they also hear Hipsman playing his oboe. His house is right on the lake, so when he plays it, it echoes around. Hipsman said he was in bed by 10:30, so why is he playing at 12:30? That night, Barnaby prepares dinner and he hums the tune Hipsman was playing. Sarah points out it's Swan Lake, and they watch a video of Nina's final performance of the ballet. Barnaby notices something in the video and calls Jones. They re-listen to the audio from the first murder and realize they missed something. There is no music after Patrick's murder, but Hipsman had said he was playing his oboe late. So why isn't it there? Because he's the killer. They race to the dance recital, but Hipsman has already left, giving Nina a ride. They head to his cottage and find it empty. They discover all the spy equipment he had used to watch the house, and they find another building full of photos and memorabilia of Nina. It is revealed that Hipsman has been obsessed with Nina in Swan Lake, and he was in the orchestra of her final performance. He followed her to Midsomer after her retirement. He sees her as his white swan, and murdered Patrick when he saw him threaten her. He had intended to throw the suspicion on the doctor. However, when he learned she was pregnant with the doctor's baby, the white swan was now the corrupted black swan. He shot the doctor, planting shells to incriminate Foxley, and now he must drown her in the lake at the stroke of midnight, much like the plot of Swan Lake. They hurry and find Hipsman dragging her in a net towards the water. Barnaby distracts him while Jones sneaks around and tackles Hipsman into the water, saving Nina. So, our killer is Michael Hipsman, and we have another case of a killer hiding his crazy.
Yeah.
I feel like if Hipsman had been that obsessed,
Mm-hmm.
right, everyone would have known this a lot sooner.
Yeah, I think so too. Also, we talked about the golf swing stroke he did on Patrick, which didn't seem to fit into the personality of Michael.
No, it was a weird little weird little moment. It was
Mhm.
almost a dance step, I will say.
Yeah,
But it didn't, it's not that I don't buy Hipsman as the killer. It's like sometimes this motive of people hiding their crazy on
yeah,
classic TV show motif. It's, in a way that like real obsessives, like this guy would have been breaking into Patrick's place all the damn time.
yeah,
Real obsessives, they don't hide it that way, and clearly he's got a lot of crazy.
yeah,
Judging from that Swan Lake, uh, uh, what was that? His shack, the Swan Lake shack.
yeah. We call it the Nina Shack.
Yeah, he's obsessed with her in Swan Lake. He's replicating each of the deaths is kind of replicating the death in Swan Lake, having to die at the stroke of midnight. In some ways, Nina is another bird
Yeah,
for him to be obsessed with.
yeah. The whole idea of him netting and then killing his victims very much was kind of like the old days of birding when they would actually kill the animal, the poor little birds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think he would have taken Nina's body to Ralph to be stuffed to go into the Nina shack?
Well, he was planning on drowning with her like the prince did. So
They could have been stuffed together.
they could have been stuffed together. Maybe it was in his will. Stuff Nina and me together.
Yeah.
Put me in my shack.
I think there was a big clue hidden when we go into his incredible books. I love that bookstore. I'm so heartbroken that it's closed.
Yeah.
But when you go into his office, there are photos of him in the orchestra and that theater that we see Nina performing in
Mm.
in the background in the bookshop. We don't ever they never do that thing where they give you a close up of the photos to say this is important. It is a super subtle clue.
Yeah.
It called out to me and said, "Oh, that looks like he was an actual concert performer."
Yeah.
Um, which is then proven when we go to the Browse website. Classic TV cop show. We're not going to pay Google
Yeah.
So it's like Chumble, the search engine, and we're gonna go onto the social media called uh, Headface.
Yeah. My place.
Yeah, and then we watch Barnaby. As soon as we watch Barnaby watching the orchestra, I was like, oh, Hipsman's gonna be in that video. Nina, I thought was interesting is Nina is objectified by pretty much everybody in this episode other than Olivia.
She is the bird. What they're all watching.
Yeah.
Yeah, the unattainable whatever that Jones and Barnaby called her.
Yeah.
Described
Well,
her.
also they called her a cherry on anyone's cake.
Yeah.
Classy.
Yeah.
Also, I believe it was Barnaby described her as dancer's thighs and a bottom like an apple.
Yeah.
Sarah, smack him, Sarah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But everyone is obsessed with her on some level. Patrick and Hipsman, Tim,
Mhm.
for God's sakes, Tim is clearly a jello around her. Foxley always talking about how he wants to
Yeah.
nail her. She is a bird in a cage.
I think with Tim, it's a little different. I think it is what he sees what she is doing to help his daughter in many ways as well.
I mean, kind of, but then you also get that thing of just at the end where he is clearly working on her car.
Yeah.
Why? Like, why is he and his daughter sitting there working on Nina's car? It's like it's not starting. I don't know why. Other than it's like I'm the nerd, and the hot girl asked me to do like hot girl's got a problem. I'm gonna
Yeah.
solve the hot girl's problem.
Yeah.
But I did like that moment where Olivia kind of recognizes that when Nina is crying,
Mhm.
that they've both kind of Nina is also mourning the same man that Olivia kind of loved from afar.
Yeah.
And there's that weird little moment of bonding.
But then Olivia realizes I don't want to have this bonding moment
Yeah.
and goes, yeah.
She's also very good at lying, which I thought was funny. Yeah, in a way that like we've talked about, like Tom every once in a while could get his head turned by a little flattery.
Mhm.
John, I think, got his head turned by her beauty,
Yeah, oh yeah.
by that bottom like an apple. For a second there, it's like almost like he flashed back into his previous Midsummer character.
Yeah. Yeah, the Randy Gardner.
Yep.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think he is a little bamboozled by her because she is so beautiful and she is the rare bird in this. If she is not from England, she's not from Midsummer. She was in the Kirov Ballet. She was a star. And so she was on this different level than, other people are there. She is something, and, he puts it kind of perfectly with the way he's describing her to Jones. And I think he feels that about her as well. And he gets caught by it a bit.
By the way, can we just stop for a second and mention how many times people say the title of this episode?
Yeah.
Foxley says it. Ralph says it. Olivia says it. Markham says it. Jones says it. Barnaby says it. Okay, I get it. I get it. This is the name of the episode. Why don't we also just say, wow, this is another Midsummer murder? It drove me nuts.
Yeah, and they use it probably not quite as much as they say like Midsummer Rhapsody, because that's an actual work that they're referring to throughout that whole episode, or the Ballad of Midsummer County, but it's up there with those.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even think in the Ballad of Midsummer County they say the Ballad of Midsummer County this many times. So those bird watchers, they even have a second meeting, which is even more tense than the first.
Yeah.
Why do they all get colds? I thought this was going to be a plot point at some point, but Ralph gets a cold, and then you see like in like 20 minutes later in the blind, Tim has some kind of cold. Why do they all have colds?
I think it's just kind of a funny thing. They're all outside in the cold weather, and so they're sneezing and rubbing their noses and blowing their noses and stuff like that.
Ralph loses his mind when they try to end the bird watching competition, which seems fair since two people in the bird watching organization are now dead. And Ralph, in his obsessive way, cares more about birds than about people getting murdered.
It's not that I think he cares about birds. I think Patrick, with his conservation of the wetlands, did care about the birds. Ralph seems to be
He wants to
a
win.
trophy hunter. He's a trophy hunter.
Yeah. Well, he is a taxidermist, and that's
Yeah.
what they, which gave me like huge Norman Bates vibes.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You name it, I've stuffed it.
Yep.
Human being. Nina. Did you notice that he waves a knife at the two detectives as they're interviewing him?
He's not the only one armed as he's being interviewed.
No, George is doing the same thing, and like at no point does anyone think maybe I shouldn't be carrying an object of death towards a police officer. I don't know. And they're so nonchalant about it. It's like,
Yeah.
also, who would keep a live cat around all those things that a cat's just gonna literally tear apart or knock over?
It did give a funny little moment for Jones, though, to reach down and think that the cat was stuffed and it was real.
It was a great little moment. It's like, ah.
Yeah.
Also, Jones with that thing's eyes keep following me.
This is actually a very good Jones episode. Some of his reaction shots are great.
Oh yeah. Ralph claims he couldn't kill anyone because he's a vegetarian, and then he starts talking about like how he couldn't take a animal's flesh into his mouth, and then just look at him and go, we're not accusing you of eating him.
Yeah.
It is a weird thing to say.
Yeah.
Which is, again, why I'm thinking he might be a serial killer. Ralph is a very strange character who is all over like, he is at an 11 at all times.
Yeah.
And a huge cheater, where he is actually covering up the killing of an endangered animal, which, by the way, is a crime in the UK. So, like, Foxley is going to get into some trouble for it. But Ralph is just going to have to take the shame, which I really liked that sentence.
I just want to know where he got that dodo, the stuffed dodo. They're not plentiful these days. In fact, they've been extinct for 200 years.
Well, he stuffed it. You name it, he stuffed it. You just start naming things, and he's going to, woolly mammoth, and, in the back, he's just going to have a giant woolly mammoth. Stuffed.
It was a great sight gag, though.
This show had a lot of interesting little sight gags, little subtle things, like Olivia with her skirt.
Yeah, oh yeah, the skirt.
Always too short for bike riding.
Yeah.
Okay, show off the gams, I guess, but it just seems like you're giving everybody a show when you're riding that bike.
She's a classic Midsomer character. Actually, I think there were some just really great classic Midsomer characters. Tim, Olivia, George,
Markham.
Markham.
He's interested in bird brain pathways.
Yeah, I think this had a lot of really great characters, which you want in something like this. They're weird, they're a little loony, but they're a little angry.
And so many of them are wimps.
Yeah.
Which makes me think, is she now going to go lust after Foxley?
She may.
He's a man.
He is a man.
He is a man. Tim is a dance dad.
Oh, yeah.
I was not real thrilled with Tim kind of diminishing Amy's like love of dance or her talent at the top.
Mm-hmm.
When Nina is encouraged, like Nina, I kind of liked because she wasn't the dance teacher. It was like, you have no talent. She's like, no, these are children with passions and dreams. We should encourage them. And Tim's like, should we though?
I think he eventually got. I think he was afraid that Amy was too much like himself, and I think he was thinking, does she belong here? She's not as graceful as everyone else. And I think Nina was like, but yeah, these are students, they're living their dreams, that's what's important. And I think he got it, and he was so wonderful at the performance.
Oh, you mean when he was he got it by the end, when he's like giving her the applause, like at the time when you're like, no dude, dance dad, zip it. We're watching a show here. I also loved that his wife is not dead. She was just so sick of him, she left and did not take her daughter. I'm telling you, she's dead She's
Yeah.
been stuffed at Ralph's place the entire time. There's a
Yeah.
whole nother episode where we can go back to this return of a rare breed, and we're going to find out that Ralph's been secretly murdering people forever.
Yeah. We're gonna find a lot of those unsolved crimes in the
Yeah.
in his murder barn.
He loved his gadgets. He loved his bird so many bird metaphors.
Mm-hmm.
Like consummate dad bird joke metaphor
Oh
guy.
yeah. Yeah.
Um, and he loves listening to bird mating calls.
He had some serious equipment for picking up bird calls.
Yeah. Well, he really enjoys listening to them hit on each other. The chat up lines of feathered friends. I'm like, no wonder your wife left, man. She was probably giving you a mating call of her own. And you're like, nope, gotta go to the woods.
Yeah.
He was a fun character, but it just like when his wife has when you realize that his wife has left him and didn't take the daughter. It's like, wait, what?
Yeah. He may be one of my favorite characters in
Yeah.
Midsummer.
Little bit of a corner. Um, Kate Wilding doesn't really get a lot in this. I thought it was kind of a weird moment. It was just like, I don't trust anything until it's proven, because she refuses to say that the guy who was smacked in the head multiple times, put in a net, and drowned, can't say that was murder yet.
Yeah.
What are the odds? Is it like 90-10, 80-20?
To me, it felt like she was still trying to feel out the new Barnaby.
But she doesn't
And
know she never knew the old Barnaby.
no, she knew him, didn't she?
No, George
Oh
was.
no, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, she is still. I think she's still trying to prove herself as the new coroner.
Yeah, she is trying to feel. Yeah, that's true because George had just left because this is still the first season of John
Yeah,
Barnaby.
they kept George for a couple episodes too. They intentionally kept George for a few. We saw George's last episode when it was
Yeah.
with the dogs.
Yeah.
They are trying to build the Kate character a little bit.
Hmm.
So, but it was just kind of weird for her to wait to like, yeah, okay, it was murder.
Yeah. Yeah.
We know. I guess it was kind of weird because we see him getting murdered.
Hmm.
And then we're waiting for the coroner just to be like, I'm not going to say if it's murder. It's like, well, we already know. So we're waiting for you now to catch up with the viewer, which is
Yeah.
a little weird. Shall we talk about the detective work in this episode?
Sure.
There was a lot of banter
Yeah.
between Barnaby and Jones this one. Almost at a point, like by the end, I was like going, this is a bit much.
I think they were trying to show that Jones was now comfortable with the new Barnaby.
Oh, it was very clear, but it had like a classic Law and Order,
Yeah.
when like the two detectives kind of walking and bantering with each other, but it was
A lot.
a
Yeah.
lot by the end.
Yeah.
Like, can you stop bantering? There's a woman's life in danger. I love that line at the taxidermist where Jones goes, he's as dead as I don't know what, and Barnaby's face of just like, you messing with me?
I'm standing right next to a dodo.
Yep.
A stuffed dodo that's apparently over 200 years old.
Barnaby asks him if he's ever read Lady Chatterley's Lover. Only bits.
And by the look on both of their faces and Jones's smile, we know what bits he read.
Jones, you'd be out of your depth in a puddle. There's some great lines. There was some really great lines. The banter was great. And yes, it was very clear that they like Jones and Barnaby had melded together. Jason Hughes,
Hmm.
top notch at like, because it's got to be, for Jason Hughes, who has been working for so long with Nettles, now have a
Hmm.
completely different actor to kind of have to bounce off of.
Yeah.
It's got to be a real trick, but he did a great
Hmm.
job.
Yeah.
John, in one of the rare times where we see him encouraging an illegal search.
Yeah, that was straight from Tom's notebook.
Yep. But you don't really see John do that anymore.
No, no. They've really cut down on the illegal search and seizure and stuff like that.
Wonder why. Wonder what's
Yeah.
happened in the world where they might not want to have that. I did think it was weird that they chose to question Nina at one point in front of the kids and the parents. I mean,
Yeah.
guys, take her outside. Go
Yeah.
home.
Wait till everybody's cleared out. Yeah.
Yep. We had Jones' love of gadgets,
Yeah.
and he, so because he is eyeballing the doctor's car.
Yeah.
He's just loving it.
Well, we know that he loves cars.
Yep. Got some other great, like, classic Barnaby stiffing Jones on the ice cream.
Yeah.
And then Jones is like, 4 pounds.
Yeah.
Barnaby being very, very smug to the doctor at one point.
Hmm.
And did you catch that when the driver drove off, he was very subtly giving them the finger on the, like, he's holding the phone with the middle finger?
Those of us with glasses know how to do that maneuver.
Yeah. And they decide to keep the evidence of a murdered endangered species in the office.
Yeah, with the stuffed hoopoe.
Yeah.
I love that, and we never see it, but I love that it's very obvious that Jones was interrupted in his date night, shall we say, when Barnaby calls him.
He's having sex.
Yeah, and he still answers the phone.
He's having sex. He's like, well, make your apologies and go. And I'm like, what? It's like, you're in bed with someone. Yeah. By the way, apparently that is going to be tied into in the next series where Jones has a
Hmm.
girlfriend. Hughes has implied in interviews that this is the girlfriend he's having sex with.
Yeah,
But there's a lot of like sex and sexiness in this episode.
yeah,
So we have Jones, Foxley constantly talking about sex.
yeah,
Nina, like there's a lot of like sexual overtones to this. That like I had a drunken one night stand, which was
yeah.
that with the doctor? Like they don't really explain the affair between Nina and Markham, right?
Yeah, no. Yeah, she kind of came up with a cover story, but it was always Markham all along. But I love as we get into the home life, the whole uh
Sarah and John
foreplay, Sarah and John's idea of foreplay.
getting getting frisky. They got to go make Betty. No, that was a great scene. It was just is like because
Yeah.
again, like they don't really we didn't really ever see that with John and Joyce by the end of their run. And
Hmm.
we don't really see it with them now because now they're parents and they're tired all the time.
Yeah.
But this is when they were like single and frisky so the show could have them. Yeah, let's everyone's get like it was a very sexy episode in some levels.
Yeah.
And I'm amazed that she still wanted to have sex with him after their 8 mile walk where he just lets out his inner control freak.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Dude, stop and ask directions or give your wife the map.
He's wearing those stupid gaiters and he's going to be in charge of the map like a man,
Hmm.
not like
Yeah.
one of these wimps, like a man.
Yeah.
And of course, he gets lost, which
Yeah.
explains why Sykes did not want to go in the first place.
Yeah.
No, when he does all when he's clearly got them lost in the woods and Sarah's like rolling her eyes, I was just like, Sarah, it's Midsummer. You can just kill him
Hmm.
and leave him out in the woods.
Yeah.
No one's gonna care. We got little Sykes moments. Sykes begging for that Moroccan veg dinner
Yeah.
that will never get made.
But he is going to get a hamburger.
Yep. And then him gurring at Jones.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The scene with Jones was great.
Anyone could train a dog, Jones. You just have to be cleverer than they are. And I got the hint that he was not talking about Sykes. By the way, so did you notice there was a scene at one point where we're seeing like a bunch of people kind of parade around, and there's a little dog that looked so much like Patty on top of a horse.
Yeah, that was right by the pub,
Yeah,
and yeah, the woman is riding a horse, and there's a dog in her lap, and the dog jumps down, and it looks exactly like Patty. Yeah.
I'm wondering, and
Mm.
obviously it's not in the credits, so it's really hard to say. But like it looked, I was like, wow, is that early Patty?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because Patty goes to the village. That's
Mhm.
how we find him again. Mon Mothma connections.
Yeah.
Um, Baby Patty was a real Star Wars fan. Final thoughts on a rare bird?
I enjoy this episode. When I was watching again last night, I was literally laughing out loud at parts. I found it very funny. I think they allowed themselves to be really humorous to show, especially how the relationship between Jones and Barnaby has developed. The new Barnaby has developed, but also some of the absurdness of the birding community. They poke gentle fun at that. I found it very funny. I found it very enjoyable. I don't think it's extremely memorable because there's not that memorable kill that you tend to
Yeah.
hold on to. But just a really fun, enjoyable murder mystery. It's light. It's kind of really what I needed at this point in time.
It's enjoyable, not memorable. I
Yeah.
also think you can really see sort of how the show is starting to transition under a new detective,
Mhm.
um, where maybe like the bizarre incest bloodiness of the
Mm.
Nettles years gradually transitions into more of the bloodless
Mhm.
Neil Dudgeon years.
Mhm.
The get more into sort of the relationships between the coroner and the detectives,
Mhm.
uh, uh, the way that Nettles used to like kind of arrest the suspects, whereas the Dudgeon's character always tends to
Talk
have
them down.
talk them
Yeah.
down or try to stop them. He has to be the
Yeah.
it's the kind of going from the more classic British detective model of like come in here, I'm going to reveal to you who the killer is. The Death
Yeah.
in Paradise model.
Yeah.
And the more action oriented detective shows of today where it's like
Yeah.
I've got it solved, but I've got to save him from killing the last victim.
Yeah. I do think though it is a classic cozy because it is very village oriented. There's nothing, I mean, you do see, there is some blood, but it's not extremely graphic. And it's got the quirky characters that you want in a cozy. It's lighter and it's funnier.
Well, I think that's something you see way like you saw a bit of it in the Nettles thing, but you see way more of it in the Dudgeon, where
Hmm.
villages are organized around a
Yeah.
specific idea or theme.
Yeah.
To the point of they keep creating villages,
Hmm.
and they probably should stop. I think they've topped out at probably like 60 different little villages.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's another like kind of more of a hallmark of the Dudgeon years.
Yeah.
It's a fun episode. It is fun. The bird watchers interaction's great. Solid mystery,
Hmm.
if not a solid mystery, if not a very memorable either murder or murderer.
Yeah.
But yeah, very very fun. Glad we got to watch this one.
Yeah. Yeah. This was
I mean, we
good.
are going to watch them all, so I'm not. I don't know why I'm saying it like that, but yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's in the same season as it's in the same season as The Night of the Stag, which is like so tonally different than this. Yeah.
Still waiting for the right time to punish our listeners with that rewatch. Um, But that's everything we wanted to talk about with a rare bird. If you had anything you want to discuss about this episode or Midsummer Murders in general, please feel free to email us at welcometomidsomer@gmail.com. If you want us to use the email on the show, you just have to say so in your email. We are also to Welcome to Midsummer on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. We are Welcome to Midsummer on YouTube, and where we have been uploading our old episodes. So please follow us in all these places. Now, if you like what you hear, please consider subscribing to us or rating and reviewing us on iTunes, which really helps people find us. Also, please turn on your automatic downloads, which helps us with the algorithm. Tell all your friends about us. We're going to be back soon with a new episode, and we hope you will join us again for that one. And as we take the road out of Midsummer, I want to thank you for listening and remind you that in Midsummer, bird watching of all kinds can be murder.
And usually is. Hoo 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 hoo.
Someone's coming to your door with a shotgun. Welcome to Midsummer is produced by Eric Buscher and Eileen Becker. All clips in this podcast are used in compliance with the U.S. Copyrights Act Fair Use Exception for criticism and commentary. Our logo and podcast art was designed by Smeedrai. Our theme music is by the infamous Space.